The hospital never truly slept, but on certain mornings, it held its breath. This was one of those mornings. At exactly 8:07 a.m., the automatic glass doors slid open with a quiet mechanical sigh. The sound was small, almost insignificant, but it carried weight. Every conversation near the entrance faded. Footsteps slowed. The air itself seemed to stiffen. Adrian Blackwood had arrived. From the reception desk to the far end of the surgical wing, a silent alarm echoed, not through speakers, but through instinct. Doctors straightened their coats without realizing it. Nurses instinctively lowered their voices. Clipboards were clutched tighter. Coffee cups were set down untouched. No announcement was made. None was needed. Everyone knew. Adrian Blackwood walked with measured steps, his polished shoes striking the floor with a rhythm that felt like a countdown. He was tall, impeccably dressed, his dark suit sharp enough to cut through nerves. His face was calm, unreadable, too calm. The kind of calm that made people uneasy, because it suggested control. Absolute control. He didn't look around much. He didn't need to. The hospital bent itself around his presence. A junior nurse near the reception desk whispered, "Is that really him?" The head nurse shot her a warning look. Eyes forward. Stories about Adrian Blackwood traveled faster than medical reports. Some said he had once fired an entire administrative team after discovering a single falsified record. Others claimed he shut down a department overnight, forcing dozens of doctors to find new jobs, because patient outcomes had dropped by less than 2%. No raised voice. No second chances. Just cold decisions. "He doesn't believe in excuses," murmured a resident as Blackwood passed the cardiology wing. Only results. Behind closed doors, he was called the executioner. Officially, he was the CEO of one of the most prestigious private hospitals in the city. Unofficially, he was fear-wrapped in authority. And today, he was touring the hospital personally. The weight of his shadow. In the third-floor nurses' station, tension hung thick in the air. "Why today?" whispered Clara, a nurse with 8 years of experience. "Why does he have to come today of all days?" "Because fate hates us," another nurse replied quietly. At the corner of the station stood Lena Carter. She wore a standard nurse's uniform, clean, crisp, a little too new. Her ID badge still gleamed, the plastic unscuffed. She had been there barely 5 days. Still learning hallways. Still memorizing faces. Still fighting the constant feeling of being in the way. No one noticed her much. And she was grateful for that. Lena listened as the others spoke in hushed tones. "They say he memorizes names," Clara whispered. "One mistake, and he remembers you forever. My cousin worked at another hospital he ran," someone added. Said morale was destroyed. People quit in tears. Lena said nothing. She simply adjusted her gloves and glanced down the hallway. She had heard the rumors too, but they hadn't scared her the way they scared everyone else. Fear, to Lena, was an old companion. The boy in room 317. At 9:14 a.m., everything changed. An emergency gurney burst through the doors, wheels screeching against the floor. A boy no older than 10 lay on it, pale and unmoving. His chest rose shallowly, unevenly. Monitors screamed warnings in sharp, unforgiving tones. "Clear the hall," a paramedic shouted. Doctors rushed in. Nurses followed. Orders flew through the air, overlapping, colliding. BP dropping. "Where's radiology? Get me labs. Now." Lena moved without thinking. She grabbed supplies, checked vitals, assisted where she could. Her movements were quick, precise, but quiet. She didn't shout. She didn't freeze. The boy's name was Ethan Miller. His mother stood near the wall, trembling, hands pressed together as if prayer alone might keep her child alive. Her eyes darted from face to face, searching for hope, and finding only tension. A senior doctor, Drive, Raymond Holt, studied the monitor with a deepening frown. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. Lena leaned closer, eyes scanning the readings. Her breath caught. She had seen this before. Not here, not in this hospital, but years ago, in another place, another room, another life slipping away while adults hesitated. Her hands tightened around the chart. "We need to act," she said softly. "Doctor." Holt barely heard her. What? The symptoms, Lena said, stepping closer. They match acute internal bleeding combined with a rare reaction. If we wait for full confirmation, we follow protocol, Holt snapped. We don't guess. But the protocol takes too long, Lena said. The room went quiet. A nurse stared at her. A resident frowned. You're new, Holt said sharply. This is not your call. Lena opened her mouth to respond, but then the tension spiked. Someone whispered the words everyone feared. He's coming. The arrival. Adrian Blackwood entered the emergency ward like a shadow crossing sunlight. Conversations died instantly. Doctors straightened. Nurses stepped aside. Even the beeping machines felt louder in the sudden silence. Blackwood surveyed the room with sharp, calculating eyes. He took in the chaos, the patient, the staff, processing everything in seconds. What's the delay? He asked calmly. Doctor. Holt swallowed. Complex case. We're waiting for confirmation. Blackwood's gaze drifted to the monitor. Then to the boy's ashen face. Waiting, he repeated, while the patient deteriorates. No one answered. Then his eyes fell on Lena. She stood frozen, not from fear, but from awareness. She knew what this moment meant. One word from this man could end her career before it truly began. What's your role here? Blackwood asked. Nurse, Lena replied. How long? 5 days. A flicker of something passed through his eyes. Dismissal, perhaps. And yet, he said slowly, you look like you have something to say. Every head turned toward her. Lena's heart pounded so loudly she was sure others could hear it. She thought of her mother. Of hospital corridors. Of silence. She took a breath. If we wait, she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her, he won't survive. The room seemed to tilt. Doctor. Holt stared at her in disbelief. That's enough. Blackwood raised a hand. Explain, he said. Lena swallowed. The symptoms point to a rapid internal bleed triggered by a rare reaction. I've seen it before. The window is minutes, not hours. Blackwood studied her. Really studied her. You're asking us to bypass procedure, he said. I'm asking you to save a life, Lena replied. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Blackwood took a step closer. You know what happens when procedures are ignored? He asked quietly. Yes, Lena said. You know I've ended careers for less. Yes. And you still speak. She met his gaze. Yes. Fear rippled through the room, but something else did too. Hope. Blackwood looked around at the frozen staff. At the child fighting for breath. At the clock on the wall. Then he looked back at Lena. And for the first time since he entered the hospital, he hesitated. Chapter 2. The clock on the emergency ward wall ticked loudly. Each second landed like a hammer. Adrian Blackwood stood motionless, his gaze fixed on the frail body of the boy lying between life and death. Around him, the hospital staff waited, not for orders, but for permission to breathe. This was the moment everything balanced on. The kind of moment Blackwood was famous for deciding without mercy. Yet something was different. The silence stretched too long. Lena Carter still stood near the bedside, her hands clenched, her pulse racing. She had said the words. She had crossed the line. There was no stepping back now. You're asking me, Blackwood said slowly, to trust a nurse who's been here less than a week over protocols written by experts. Yes, Lena replied. Her voice was quiet, but unbreakable. Doctor. Holt stepped forward. This is reckless, he insisted. If we act without confirmation and something goes wrong. It already is going wrong, Lena interrupted. Gasps rippled through the room. Blackwood raised a hand again, silencing everyone. His eyes never left Lena. Why should I believe you? He asked. Lena took a shaky breath. Because I've lived this, she said. Because I've watched people die while professionals argued. Because fear slows hands, and courage saves lives. The boy's monitor let out a sharp warning beep. The sound cut through the room like a blade. Blackwood turned toward the machine. The numbers were slipping fast now. How long? He asked. Minutes, Lena said. Maybe less. Blackwood closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. No one noticed, except Lena. Then he opened them. Do it, he said. The word hit the room like thunder. What? Doctor. Holt whispered. Act, Blackwood repeated. Now, chaos erupted, but this time, it was focused. Purposeful. Orders flew, sharp and clear. Nurses moved. Doctors worked. The hesitation that had gripped them dissolved under urgency. Lena was everywhere, monitoring vitals, assisting procedures, calling out changes before anyone else noticed them. Her hands didn't shake. The memory that fueled her wasn't fear, it was fire. The battle against time. Sweat beaded on Dr. Holt's forehead as he worked. The room buzzed with controlled intensity. Every second mattered. Every decision carried weight. Pressures dropping again, a nurse called. Adjust fluids, Lena said immediately. Dr. Holt shot her a glance, but followed her suggestion. Minutes passed. Then, stabilizing, someone whispered. The monitor steadied. The beeping slowed. The boy's chest rose more evenly. Silence followed, but this time, it was relief. Ethan Miller was alive. A sob broke through the stillness. His mother collapsed against the wall, tears streaming down her face as relief overtook her body. Nurses exchanged stunned looks. Some smiled, others wiped their eyes. Dr. Holt exhaled slowly, as if releasing a breath he'd been holding for years. Blackwood watched it all, every detail, especially Lena, the consequences. Later that day, Lena sat alone in a small conference room. Her hands finally shook. She stared at the table, replaying every moment. Every word, every risk. She knew what came next. The door opened. Adrian Blackwood entered. No entourage, no assistants, just him. Sit, he said. She was already sitting. He took the chair across from her, folding his hands neatly on the table. You broke protocol, he said. Yes. You challenged senior staff. Yes. You put the hospital at legal risk. Yes. Silence followed. Lena lifted her eyes. But the patient lived, Blackwood said. Yes, she replied quietly. He studied her for a long moment. Do you know why people fear me? He asked. Because you're powerful, Lena said. No, he corrected. Because I never hesitate. She nodded. My hesitation, he continued, once cost a life. Lena's breath caught. Years ago, Blackwood explained, he had been a young administrator, not yet hardened, not yet feared. A child had needed urgent approval for an experimental procedure. The board debated. Lawyers argued. He waited. The child died. And I learned, Blackwood said, that fear wears many disguises. Even professionalism. Lena listened in silence. You reminded me of something I forgot, he said. She didn't respond. I won't fire you, Blackwood continued. But I won't praise you either. She nodded. That was more than she expected. What I will do, he said, standing, is change things. The ripple effect. The changes began quietly. New emergency protocols, faster decision pathways, empowerment training. Nurses were encouraged to speak. Doctors were reminded to listen. People noticed. So did the rumors. They say the CEO actually listened to a nurse, staff whispered. They say he approved reforms overnight. They say he's different. Lena didn't seek attention. She returned to work. But people began to see her. Young nurses asked questions. Doctors asked opinions. Fear loosened its grip, slowly, cautiously. One evening, Lena passed the pediatric ward. Ethan Miller smiled at her from his bed. Mom says you saved me, he said. Lena smiled back, tears filling her eyes. No, she said softly. You saved yourself. The final moment. Weeks later, Blackwood stood in the same emergency ward. But the atmosphere had changed. People spoke more freely. They moved with confidence. Fear no longer ruled the room. Lena passed by, chart in hand. Ms. Carter, Blackwood called. She turned. You didn't just save a patient, he said quietly. You saved this hospital from becoming something I never intended it to be. She nodded. Courage, he added, as contagious. And as he walked away, Lena realized something profound. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is speak, even when your voice shakes. Because fear thrives in silence. And courage changes everything. End.